Hello, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Normal America Show. I don't need these headsets yet. Hope everyone's having a great day. Sorry about that focus issue there. What's up, Achilles? How's it going, everyone? So, I don't really have an idea plan for the show tonight as far as topics. We got a bunch of things that we can talk about, and God knows I could go off for hours if I need to. But I thought that we would try to do a call-in show. Look, I understand I've said this a lot in this past year. It's been a crazy year. My schedule's all screwed up, and that includes tonight. There is a chance my wife goes into labor at any moment. Obviously, if that's the case, you'll have to forgive me if I run out. If I if I get the call, she's currently taking a bath and taking a nap. What's up, Aftershock? You'll have to forgive me if it's getting to the 0 hour here. So we're excited about that. I've been busy and I didn't do research for necessarily, I guess I did, for topics tonight. But I thought, seeing as how yesterday was 4 hours and was a lot of time talking to people in the chat, that instead today, and what I want to do is a show like this once a week where you join my Discord and then one at a time we'll take calls for, depending on how it's going and how many people want to call in, maybe 15 minutes at a time, and preferably one-on-one calls. So in order to join to call, all you have to do is go to my Discord channel, and then you'll see a section on there that says voice channel. I won't show I'll call you whatever you want, won't use your real name, and we don't have to use video. It could just be audio. That's fine. So you don't have to worry about getting doxxed or anything like that. As far as topics, I'm willing to discuss anything, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, if it wants to be COVID related, the election related, kind of the January 6th rally that's going to be occurring. So I'm willing to take any calls on any topics people want to talk about. My boy's name's going to be Hank. So it'll be our first kid, so we're really excited. He will be Hank Miller Knorr. So the due date's January 6th, but they think that he's big for how long he's been in there. And so we have a doctor appointment Wednesday, and they're going to discuss a possible induction date. But it's, I'm no expert. My wife obviously knows more than me, but she thinks it's getting close to time. So, again, if I have to run out, it's because my wife's in labor. So don't worry. It's the most exciting moment of my life. So, like I said, thank you for the congratulations. It's a weird year. Like, I'm watching the country I love so much being, basically being stolen. But at the same time, I'm having a kid, and it's kind of the most exciting moment in my life. So weird times. But I'm more excited than anything for the birth of my son. So excited. So if you're just checking in here, join my Discord. What's that? Oh, she yelled. I got all excited. I thought she said, "We got to go," but she's yelling at the dogs. So again, I'll put the link to my Discord. Just join the voice channel there. I'll put the headset on just in case. And anyone who wants to call in, I can't guarantee that I'll talk to each individual for 2 hours or anything. It depends on if other people want to call in. And I'm also trying to limit it to one caller at a time. I know that because what happens is if you don't, you end up with 5 people talking over each other. And particularly if we're not using video for people. As far as the firearms I do own firearms, yes. Achilles. So let's talk about the election. So Achilles is talking about Pence and whether or not which set of electors he will certify. Look, I'm not saying this to infuriate anyone, but I told you all before the election that it would be stolen, the Democrats would win. I told you all as soon as Election Day happened that the Supreme Court wouldn't do anything, Barr wouldn't do anything, Durham wouldn't do anything, Pence isn't going to do anything. Joe Biden will be sworn in. He will. I hope that's not the case, but I'm 99.9% certain. So we'll see. Everyone keeps every single thing, every single step along the way. I've been right. And I just have a litany of people saying, no, you're wrong. The Supreme Court's going to hear this Texas case and they're going to roll and blah, blah, blah. I said, no, they're not. They're not. And I said, not only are they not, but the arguments that people were arguing against me, like the Trump supporters, which I'm a Trump supporter, so don't get me wrong, but that they were making were all arguments now that are used by Democrats. So they were saying, oh, you have to trust Amy Coney Barrett. You have to trust Kavanaugh. These are people that were appointed by Trump. We have the majority in the Supreme Court. They're going to roll our way, guaranteed. And I said they won't. And then the Democrats will use every argument you're making right now saying these people are all on Trump's side to say, see, even the people, everyone said this court was on Trump's side, and even they've rolled against him. It's going to be the same scenario with Pence. Even Pence voted for the electors that supported Joe Biden. It's a tough pill to swallow, but until you accept reality, and my fear is that the next stage of this sort of false. So you're saying there's a chance, says Aftershock. The next of this false hope will be, I will now listen to people tell me, of course, it was all part of the plan that Trump didn't get reelected. He could do more outside of the office of the president. That'll be the next. And I'll have to say, no, that's not what happened. You know, let's be honest. Let's be honest about Donald Trump for a minute. Best president in my lifetime. I personally think the guy means well. But what did he really accomplish? He accomplished what I voted for him for, which was I wanted a potential political outsider that would make abundantly clear for the average person just how corrupt our system is. Because by virtue of being elected, he would force that corrupt system to come out him with both barrels, which they did. There's no doubt. Our scientific community is corrupt. Look at their, you can't go to work, but you can go to Black Lives Matter rally. You can't go visit your family, but we all can. Healthy people need to be locked down, but elderly people need to be forced with people with COVID. Our media class, if you didn't already know, now you know, after the election of Trump's garbage. Our intel agencies, our State Department agencies, our academia. Like, it's evident now. The system's corrupt. And he outed that corruption. But he didn't do the next step, which was do anything about that corruption. I understand he's one man. Excuse me, ladies. I understand he's one man, and you can't... Stop barking, please. With such, I can only imagine what he goes through on a daily basis. So, but as an outsider looking in, it was a failure. Yeah, he definitely was what the right needed. Do you understand now that the Republican Party doesn't care about you? Do you get that? Do you see what Mitch McConnell's doing? If it wasn't evident when Lindsey Graham said, we're going to get some subpoenas. We're going to subpoena these people that were involved in the coup against Donald Trump. We're going to get subpoenas. We're going to do it. And then did nothing. Or Bill Barr, or Jeff Sessions. Hey! No barking. Now look, the Republicans, they'll override Trump's veto on the Defense Act, but at the same time they'll say, oh, we can send money to military contractors and foreign governments and things like that. We can't send the American people money. We can't do that. That's what the Republicans think of you. Not all of them, but the vast majority, other than Trump. And that, there's your Rand Pauls and your Ted Cruz's, but that's about it. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you guys being bad tonight? So yeah, I mean, it's clear. He illustrated that as well. But there were steps he could have taken. Every step of the way, the failure of Donald Trump is this. When he relied on his intuition, 95% of the time he was correct. Why are we arming what basically amounts to Islamic terrorists in Syria to fight Assad if ISIS is our biggest opponent? Why do we have troops stationed all around the world? Why don't we bring some of them back? I'm going to have to kick you out of the room if you can't behave. Come here. This culprit one. Yeah. Everybody knows you're being bad now. Now you're shamed. You feel terrible about yourself. You feel bad? Okay. Go down and tell your sister to behave. You can't stay up here the whole time. What are you doing? I know. You're a good girl. You okay? Oh my goodness. Stop chewing bottles. They found, I have a little like small office garbage can here that I just had a couple of water bottles in, and they found it, and now they're chewing. The other one won't even come up because she's enjoying her chew fest. But they got these toys. They look like squirrels or something. You put the water bottle inside them, and then they chew it up. Now every time they see a water bottle, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a toy." So that's what's going on. She is fighting against the establishment. That is what's going on. Yeah, they're all traitors. They are, and it's been that way. Don't get it twisted. The establishment Republican and Democratic Party are basically the same, and they have been. I've argued that. That's why I supported Ron Paul, and they cheated Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012. Ron Paul was right then. Almost everything he said, it was prophetic about the establishment. He's still my favorite politician, Ron Paul. So Donald Trump, that was his big failure, though. He trusted establishment people when he correctly isolated the message of, think of all the message, he talked about illegal immigration. That was a winning issue for the majority of Americans. All of his advisors said, no, that's a loser. That's a loser. Don't talk about that. Remember in 2018, he started to say, yeah, Republicans in these midterm elections, we're going to run on healthcare. We're going to come up with a healthcare system. Look, I'm here to tell you, you might be against Medicare for all. I'm kind of against it. What's the Republican plan, though? What's Mitch McConnell's plan? Remember, they told us for 7 years when they were the minority, they said, once we're in charge, we'll repeal and replace. Okay, they ended the mandate. Did they replace? Not really. So in 2018, when Trump wanted to talk about healthcare, would Mitch McConnell say? Would Lindsey Graham say? No, that's not a winner for us. And they got smacked around in the midterms. Oh, Trump, don't take your message to the people. I don't necessarily agree with his tone in all of the things he tweets, but he was right to take his message to the American people. Mr. Trump, you got to treat the intel agencies and the media with respect. No, you don't. He was right to not do that. And the biggest thing that Trump was right about was drain the swamp. How crooked and corrupt establishment politics is. And yet, his biggest failure is he put swamp people around him. Now, I personally think it wasn't intentional. I think that he trusted these people and he got played. But there are people that say, oh, Trump was in on it all along. I don't think so. But does it matter at the end? John Bolton? You put John Bolton, neocon John Bolton, you put him in your administration? All of these people that he had. Now look, there's a lot that we could talk about. It was hard for him to find people because in order to be qualified for these positions, you basically have to be someone who's been involved in politics your whole life, which means you're 98% compromised probably by virtue of you've been in politics. And so it's hard to just put people off the street in these positions. But they constantly instructed him to kind of play it like, for example, you can't just come out and do this because you'll anger the other side. Guess what? They're going to call you a Nazi no matter what. So you might as well just do your agenda. No matter what you do, they're going to say Trump's a Nazi, he's horrible. So just do your agenda. Don't worry about trying to appeal to them. They hate this country. They hate the people in it. Stop it. They're corrupt. You correctly called them corrupt. Who cares what they have to say? Period. It's that simple. I don't care what Adam Schiff, who spread Russian disinformation and worked at the behest of a Russian spy, lied to the American people, held an impeachment to stop Trump from looking into the crimes of the Obama-Biden administration. I don't care if his feelings are hurt because Trump decides we're going to pull troops out. I don't care. I don't care that all the people on the left that supposedly are the party of peace are all of a sudden, oh, you can't just pull troops out like that. They're liars. They're scumbag hypocrites. They never cared about innocent people dying in war. They didn't care for a minute. All they cared was, can we use this to harm George Bush? I was no Bush fan. I was against the war in Iraq. Republican president? Oh, we'll pretend to be for peace then. Because we could say that gives us a moral high ground against our opponent. But then once their guy was in office, Barack Obama, now all of a sudden, Nobel Peace Prize for this warmonger. Then when Trump says we're going to pull troops out, all of a sudden, every single time, well, you can't pull out here. Well, you can't pull out here. Well, you can't pull out here. Oh, it's horribly immoral to pull these troops out. I don't care what they think. They're hypocrite liars. But Trump's advisors convinced him that that was somehow important. Worse than that, Trump saw firsthand, probably in a way that, God willing, none of us have to see, what it's like for the full force of the United States intel community to come at you. He saw the corruption early. He knew in 2017 what was going on. And yet, the people he put around him to advise him convinced him and successfully got him to stall for 4 years. Now, I talk to my friend Carlos all the time. What are these conversations like? There's the old Bill Hicks joke, which, by the way, I love Bill Hicks, where you get elected president and they put you in a dark room and then they show you as another angle of the JFK assassination. But it's from the third shooter. And they're like, now, do you have any questions? Basically, Bill Hicks's joke, it's implying you're going to do what we tell you or we'll blow your head off. I don't think that's what happened. Maybe, but I don't think so. I don't think that'd be the correct way to convince Trump. Trump, someone seems like he would fight just for the sake. If nothing else, and I think even the people on the left, Trump is a counterpuncher. You hit me, I'll hit you back. For better or worse. That's not always the correct mentality, but that's who he is. That's why the left was foolish. If they would have just been Trump's friend, Trump's not an ideological conservative. He probably would have listened to the left on a lot of things. By the way, that's the danger of the Trump could do no wrong crowd. The truth is, the way politics works is politicians are malleable. They kind of, at the top levels, like Mitch McConnell, them, they have their agenda and they hate you. Got it. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Lindsey Graham. They hate you. They don't care. They're going to do what they want. But like, public opinion does mean stuff on certain issues, particularly if you're the base of the person that's the president. So instead of us all rallying and saying, fire Bill Barr, fire Jeff Sessions, release it all now. Instead, we had a large group of people saying, trust the plan. Oh, Trump could do no wrong. Well, here we are. What's up, everyone? Yeah, so many people on the left. There are people in the right that'll lie to your face, but it's disproportionate. So many people on the left that will play this moral high ground card, and they'll lie right to your face. You watched my show yesterday? You see it in action. People can't tell the truth. I'm wrong. I'm arrogant. I'm wrong. I've been hypocritical in my life. I'll admit all that. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'll admit all that. But I try my best when I'm having a discussion with someone, particularly on this show, but in real life, to give my honest opinion, even if it's stupid or wrong. But so many people I talk to on the left, and definitely those that are running the Democratic Party, they can't do it. I just had a discussion, and again, we're going to do a call-in show, so I'll get to that here shortly. But I had a discussion today on Twitter, on my Twitter feed, that was for the past 2 days, that had to do with the fact that our FBI knowingly, here's what now we're getting a bigger picture. I said in October of 2017, if the FBI used unverified opposition research to spy on a presidential campaign, it's the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. Still is. Now we know it's so much worse. So here's what we know on top of that. One, we know that the FBI, including James Comey, were aware of the fact that intel sources said Hillary Clinton planned to frame Trump as working with Russia to take the heat off of the investigation into her server. And the FBI took the bait and exactly did that. Second, they knew that Christopher Steele was a liar and couldn't be trusted because he was spreading the information that he was swore to secrecy to the media and things like that. And to people in Hillary's campaign when the FBI asked him not to do that, apparently. Third, we know that the FBI knew that the primary subsource was a Russian spy that the FBI itself was investigating for damaging national security in 2007. We know that the FBI lied or omitted things 17 times in order to continue to spy on Trump's team. We know that they changed evidence to say the opposite of what it was in order to continue spying on Trump. We know that they talked to the primary subsource after the second time that they signed off on the second FISA warrant. They talked to the primary subsource. The primary subsource said, whoa, I can't believe you're using this information to spy on Donald Trump. This was all just bar talk. None of this is confirmed. We were all just joking around. And they went to the FISA court and said, we talked to the primary subsource. And we think he's honest. But they didn't say, oh, and what he was honest about was our entire case is bogus. They left that piece of information out. We know that the FBI did all that. They knew Hillary was setting this up. They knew that it was a Russian spy that was spreading this disinformation. Yet they still chose to use it to spy on Trump's campaign without bothering to verify it once. That's just with the Carter Page stuff. We can go into the Papadopoulos stuff with them sending Stefan Halper and Azra Turk and all of this that they were sent to him. We now know that they originally claimed that Crossfire Hurricane, the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion, started July 31st, 2016. Now documents have been released where Peter Strzok's talking to Lisa Page saying that there were investigations into Trump-Russia before July 31st, 2016. So the entire story that you've been told, oh, this was about George Papadopoulos, not about the Steele dossier, that's a lie. That's not what the start was. The FBI was on it. Chuck Schumer told you. The FBI didn't like him. Trump came out and criticized the intel community. Okay. Then they'll bring you down. That's what Chuck Schumer told us. That's exactly what they did. So despite the fact we know all this, I still have left-wing people on Twitter saying, I was arguing with this person. He tries to sound reasonable. He's like, there was credible evidence that Russia was interfering in our election. And so I think because of that, if a Russian comes to the FBI and says, Donald Trump's working with the FBI, that Russian was just trying to help the FBI. So yeah, I'm glad they investigated it. Bullshit. And you know it. By the way, we also know now, remember when it was 17 intel agencies said that Russia was interfering to help Trump? Well, then it turned into, it's 4. And then it turned into, it was just John Brennan and his 2 associates. And there were people in the CIA that wrote the National Intelligence Assessment that said, actually, we see evidence that Russia's interfering to help Hillary. But none of that matters to the left-wing person. They'll make any excuse possible to justify the spying on Trump, to justify the corruption against Trump. And I said, okay, well, if you think serious accusations require FBI investigations and a special counsel, surely then you're ready for the special counsel into Joe Biden, correct? Well, if credible evidence comes, credible evidence? What the hell was credible about the evidence against Trump that led to the spying on Carter Page? They didn't even verify it. So all Trump needs to do is pay some Chinese person to say, by the way, Joe Biden's corrupt. He likes to get peed on by hookers, and he's corrupt. That's it. That's the new standard. And they'll lie to you. They'll sit there and lie and say, I'm even-handed about this. No, I'm not for FBI corruption. I thought this deal was very good. If the shoe was on the other foot, they'd be going, Donald Trump's a dictator. This is the worst abuse. He used his intel agencies to spy on his opponent. But when it was Hillary Obama, no problem. They're liars. Or how about the person on the show yesterday? The majority of local newspapers are conservative. When I'm talking, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. We're talking about how almost the vast bulk of the mainstream media supported Joe Biden. Corruptly so. In some cases where they were censoring stories that were critical of him. Oh, the majority of papers are conservative. So then when I go on and actually show them, here's the actual newspaper endorsements. 90% for Joe Biden. He's like, oh, well, that's because Trump's a monster. You see, they're lying. This is something they do over and over. They'll make an absurd claim. Donald Trump said Nazis are good people. No, he didn't. Let me prove it. Then I spend 15 minutes going through the transcripts of all 3 speeches. See, he clearly condemns Nazis, white supremacists, racism. Clearly condemns racism in all 3 speeches, the KKK and Nazis in 2 speeches. He says there were good people on both sides and then immediately says, of course not the racists and Nazis. I condemn them fully. So no, you're just wrong. And then the person on the left will just say, but Donald Trump said to drink bleach. No, he didn't. Then you go through that. Well, Donald Trump's a monster. He's an authoritarian. They just changed the goal. They don't care. They don't care. I'm not saying everyone on the left, but they're hypocrites and they don't care. And they're willing to sit there and lie to you. All right, so if anyone's interested, I'm going to put the Discord link back up here, so it'll be on the chat. You click that, you go into the Discord, and there's a section you'll see it says voice channel. If you click on that, I'm taking call-ins, so if someone wants to call in, if you do call in, just say whatever name you want to go by and what you want to talk about. It's going to be one at a time. A bunch of people could join, but I just want everyone to mute except one at a time. So, Yeah, Ankar. I watch Scott Adams a lot, and yeah, he does talk about this, and it's an intelligent friend. By the way, Ankar, I know you've wanted to talk to me, so if you don't want it to be in front of an audience, we could do it some other time. But you can call in. Feel free to call in if you want. But yeah, like Scott, and I have friends that are intelligent left wingers. So look, let me be clear here. First off, I'm gonna bash the Republicans over and over and over. I've done it in my show. By the way, it's hip to bash them now. Who was doing it for years? This guy. I was losing subs back in March where I'm saying, where are the Republicans? Why am I voting for these people? Why are they silent on the lockdowns? Why are they silent on the riots? What's my incentive to vote for my local Republicans? I was losing subs. People didn't want to hear it. When I criticized Trump for his spending, for bombing Syria, for allowing incompetents like Bill Barr and swamp creatures to cover up for the corruption around him. By the way, if you're interested, here's what Trump could do right now, today, to start to make a lasting impact. Pardon Assange and Snowden. Now, immediately. Release every single document about any bit of corruption in the intel community, period. I don't care what it is. Drug smuggling, Iran-Contras, deposing foreign governments, release it all. That's what he should do. Instead, he'll listen to Barr or whoever the new guy is. I forget his name that's replacing Barr, or Durham or Lindsey Graham or Mitch McConnell. Oh, Mr. President, trust us. Trust us. They're going to get theirs. We're going to make sure these people are held responsible. But if you release this information, it'll jeopardize our case. How long are you going to fall for that line, Donald Trump? Hey, thanks everyone for the well wishes. Unintelligent. That's a word I would use to describe myself, rational. Check to see if anyone's on the Discord. No. So, I'm proud to say that I was one of the most vocal conservative commentators against the lockdowns immediately, even when Republicans were supporting it. And even when Donald Trump was saying, oh, Newsom's doing a good job and Cuomo's doing a good job. Who was there? Me. I'm proud to say I was one of the earliest conservatives. If you watched my show in 2019, the last 6 months of 2019 was me saying, I don't understand where all of this optimism's coming that Trump's going to win 48 states and win in a landslide. Never underestimate how much the establishment will cheat. I called Pennsylvania for the Democrats months before the election, as soon as the lawsuits came out that said that you were able to count ballots whose signatures didn't match voter registrations. I said right there, that's it. Pennsylvania's done. Trump needs Pennsylvania to win. End of election. I said, where are the Republicans fighting this right now? The election's over right now. Months before the election, it's over. And where are the Republicans? Silent. That's where they were. Not all of them. There's some good ones. Russ Diamond, Doug Mastriano. It's not always popular. Look, and that's one of the things about me that I'll never have a huge show probably because I don't just come on and give comfort food where I'm like, yep, my side's always right. It's not the case at all. I don't even know what my side is at this point. Patriot? I find myself agreeing more with Bernie Sanders today than almost anyone on the Republican side, save a handful of a dozen. Bernie Sanders is out there today saying, no excuses, 2000 standalone bill to the American people now. Now, it's complicated. I'm not necessarily for just doling out checks. It sets a precedent. But this is different. This isn't UBI or anything like this. This is the government's policies intentionally bankrupted people, and now they're obligated to make sure that those people can survive. That's what it is. So I don't know what you would say my side is necessarily. You know, it's tough. Humans are tough. Labels are important to be able to communicate. That's how humans communicate. But oftentimes labels are difficult to affix to yourself or to others, and it leads to all sorts of stuff. Constantly, I'll be like, you lefties. Well, I'm not necessarily always a lefty, and so I screw that up all the time too. But I'm just saying. Two attorneys stopped cases against voter fraud in PA because Threads and a prosecuted who was going to investigate election fraud in PA resigned. Yeah, I saw that person resigned, so. Right, the side of the Constitution. That's basically, I'm America first, right. Real quick, the reason I do this show, I grew up in rural America. I see that people of all colors, all religious faiths, all geographical backgrounds to come to this place, all economic, but particular poor, but all economic brackets. I see the people in my community underrepresented. I've lived here my whole life. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Libertarian, white, black, Muslim, atheist, Christian, straight, gay, transgender. I don't care. In my area of the world, people were basically forgotten about. I bet it's that way in the inner city. I bet it's that way where you live too. That's why I call the show Normal America. It's not that you have to agree with me or you're not a normal American. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that there's this idea that the average American has basically been left behind. That's what our corrupt system's done. Now, I'm conservative. I identify more with the Republican Party. That's my bias. And I think I have good reasons for that. I defend those positions. But I'm certainly willing to listen to people on the other side. And that's why if you watch my show, I talk about, even though it's tough, but I've talked about trying to, in order to beat this establishment, we're going to have to partner with people that we disagree mightily on many issues. So again, if anyone wants to call in with any particular topic, there's the Discord link. You just go to there, then click on voice channel. And you'll see that I'm in there. And you don't have to use your real name or anything like that, and there won't be video. And we can talk about any topic. So just announce yourself when you get in there, because I'm not looking at my Discord screen now. I support liberty. That's exactly it. The thing that made the United States the greatest country in the history of the world was the focus on the individual. But it's a double-edged sword, because the individual, it's personal freedom and personal responsibility. That's what liberty means. Everybody thinks of the freedom part, but they forget about the responsibility part. But liberty is you have the freedom and you have the responsibility. That's what it is. And we've seen the establishment take away those freedoms and that responsibility. They're the endearing mother. That's what they want to do to usher in their globalism. Don't work. Don't worry. We'll take care of you. Here, stay at home. Here's money. They don't want people self-sufficient. They want people reliant on them, just like an over-endearing parent does. And what happens to the child of the over-endearing parent? Well, they don't have to worry about any of the challenges of life, but they never grow up. And you end up with Norman Bates from the movie Psycho. That's what happens. Only rational people can hang out with our NPCs. Well, I constantly, if you've watched the show regularly, how many times do people from the left come on and say, anytime, anywhere, let's have this discussion? I say, okay, right now. Well, I'm busy right now. Happened just the other day. It happens all the time. That's fine. You could just don't talk a big game then. I get it. You don't want to call in. That's fine. And by the way, the majority of people that have called in, I've been incredibly polite to. Now, it's not always the case. So let me talk about, since we don't have a call yet, I'll talk about some other things. That's something I'm good at. Let me get a drink from my trusty thermos in here. Shout out to anyone who could guess what's in the thermos here. Ugh. Anyone guess what's in there? Gatorade, vodka. Water it is! Yeah, it's always water. Sometimes I'll have a diet soda or something. Congratulations to, let me get it right, Lizelle. It was water. Nothing interesting. I can't drink now. At any given moment, I have to get in the car and take my wife to the hospital if she goes into labor. So I haven't touched alcohol for like a month and a half. Human head. Great guess, Vita. So Ankar's in here, and actually, I hope you're still listening, Ankar, because we had a discussion a long time ago, I believe it was me and Ankar, about whether or not we should adapt the strategy that we see so many on the left. And I'll talk about what exactly that means, but I think, perhaps I misunderstood Ankar. I will never embrace the idea that we need political violence. Here's the deal with political violence, right? Because you'd be like, what about the revolution? Here's the deal. For every one time that it's been the right thing to use political violence. There's thousands of times that it's wrong. So it has to be the only option you have left. You have to have objectively the morally righteous side. And you have to be in fear of your very existence if you don't resort to that last-ditch effort. I don't see us there yet. At all. Not only is it immoral, it's also not strategic. How can I condemn Antifa and Black Lives Matter for their violence if I'm saying, oh, by the way, we should go engage in violence? I understand the argument on our side will be, but they started it. But that's the argument they say. Oh, I'm not, don't worry about it, Modus. You can say whatever you want, man. So no, I think it's not only like, here's the thing. When you're talking to people, when you're talking about these sort of things, yeah, peaceful fires and things like that, exactly. When you're talking about these things, there's several ways to look at it. There is what makes you a righteous and moral person. I love this country. I hope that that's evident. I will fight for this country. I will never stop. Not saying violence. I think I'm evident I'm saying that. But I'll continue to speak the truth as I see it in defense of this, the greatest country in the history of the world. That's what I'll do. Even if it costs me, which it has, and it's certainly, the way things are going, it's going to cost patriot people a lot more. You're going to get bank accounts closed. You'll be physically attacked. Maybe you'll be put in re-education camps if some of the people on the left get there. But that's different, by the way. If they're coming to physically take you away, that's a different calculus. Anyways. But it's clear, I have not been advocating political violence, and I've spoken against it. I hope that's clear. This is what I was saying. At the end of the day, even though I love this country, there's one thing that matters more to me than that. If you have a relationship like with a higher power, I don't talk about religion a lot, but if that would go in with this, but your relationship with that and your family and yourself. We all die someday. I think about this a lot. When I'm on that deathbed, what did I leave behind? Can I look myself in the mirror? Did I throw away who I was in order to win a short-term political battle? I hope not. We all screw up. I screw up every single day. Call it sin, call it arrogance, just boneheaded stuff. Like every day, I do it a lot. But I'm trying. So in that vein, you look at what's morally right. I don't see the political violence being morally acceptable at this point. But I know that a lot of people will say garbage. Now's the time. Okay. Most people don't find the moral argument persuasive. So let's go to the strategic argument. Violence is only effective if there's something behind it. For example, if it's violence for violence sake, you just fight to the death, and that's it. You'll never win. You just keep fighting until you're dead. So there has to be something behind it, right? There has to be an end game. And the problem is, I don't see a way that violence on any side is effective if there's not a backing behind it of popular support. That does not exist right now for people that are constitutionally minded. It doesn't. So what do I mean specifically? If a bunch of conservatives would decide to go Black Lives Matter style and say, we're going to set up, we're going to go into Pittsburgh and we're just going to start lighting fires in the city and start beating the crap out of shop owners and start looting. The mayor of Pittsburgh will send every police officer to put their boots on your neck immediately. You will be thrown in jail to the maximum extent of the law. Every news outlet, even conservative ones, OAN, Newsmax, Tucker Carlson, Rush Limbaugh will be like, no, don't do this. you will have no support. The very police that you have defended will be more than happy to crack your skull. That's just the truth. It is. Now, that's different than what happened with Rittenhouse. Even though they came after him, that's different. His life was, in that moment, in jeopardy. Different. That's different than the McCloskeys that didn't even use violence. They saw their property broken into. They defended their property. That's different. There are millions of us that say, yes, we will support that. I didn't want Rittenhouse to have to kill people, but they had every right to defend their property with weapons because the police were unwilling to do so. And when he was being chased and attacked while openly brandishing, so these people clearly were making it a life and death situation, and then gunfire came from the direction of the people attacking him, he had every right to fight back, as far as I can see, unless new evidence is introduced. That's different than saying, we're going out and we're starting fires like Black Lives Matter. Oh, I have someone on Discord. Great. What's up, Ankar? Can you hear me? I can't hear you for some reason. Let me check my settings. Mic test. Input my. Go ahead and say something, man. I don't. Maybe it's your microphone? I don't know. Did I screw something? Let me check. 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 Let me check something here. These headphones have been giving me problems here lately. Check. Check. Well, maybe we won't be doing call-ins. I don't know. Someone else want to hop on and see if their audio is working? I don't know. Sorry about that. We'll see if we can get it working here. But did I mute the tab bar? I don't think so. Everything says it's running. Check. Settings. Voice and video. Let me check something real quick. I'll put a YouTube video on and see if I could hear it. By the way, I hate YouTube and I'm trying not to use it as I go. No, that's working. I wonder if it's just Ankar's audio, or I don't know. But it should be working. The sound worked there. Let's check. Yeah. So, all right. Anyways, we'll keep going. I don't want to end the show. But so that's my case when it comes to violence and things like that. Now, so I'm against it. I don't think that it's strategic. I think that it'll end up hurting the cause. This is and if you question this, is there any? Let me know if there's anyone out there that disagrees with this. Is it not the case that the Democrats, the corporations, academia, the media, the tech companies, the Democratic mayors, the intel communities, they're all pushing us, right? Right. That's what this is about. The blatant hypocrisy of them is incredible. Oh, no. You can go out and go start fires, no problem. You can break into people's property, no problem. But if those people defend themselves, then the police will crack down on them. It's obvious that right? Everyone can see they're trying to push you for that violence. Why? Because they're betting that's a win for them. That's what they're betting. If you get violent, that's a win for them. Because they know the truth. The way that we win this battle, their side versus ours, is who could get that big middle group. The average people, 80% of the population, they're not strictly on my side. They're not strictly on the establishment side. So whoever controls that group and what they're thinking wins. Now, when I say control, that's literally what the establishment wants to do. They're trying to buy them off. Stay at home. Don't work. Don't be self-sufficient. Lock down forever. But now you need us to survive as daddy government. My side doesn't want to control them. It just wants to wake them up. That's all. Believe what you want. We just think you should know how corrupt the people are that are trying to control you. That's it. If you engage in that violence, those people in the center are going to be like, oh yeah, look at those violent Trump supporters. Yep. Just saying. Just this one stream, right? Oh. No, I don't need you to do anything. You can tell me if you go into labor. I would be happy to take you. Let me check and see if we figured this out. Ankar, I still can't hear you. I don't know if you're having mic issues or if it's me. If someone else gets on Discord, I'll be able to figure it out. But as of right now, not working. I don't know. No, I don't need you to do anything, Court. So, that was a conversation I had with Ankar, our disagreement. I interpreted, and we'll have to see what his opinion is, I interpreted him as saying, the left does something, those tactics should be available to us. I say that's wrong. Now, here's the caveat. I've never been against fighting. And I have started to adapt some of the, how would you say this, softer rhetorical tactics of the left. But that's different. And like this comes from like this comedian Doug Stanhope, who he's picking on pro-life people, unfortunately, in the bit, but it's still funny. His claim is, when you're talking to someone who has a point that you find to be ridiculous, sometimes you need to approach it from the more ridiculous position that agrees with them. Right? So, for example, I'm having a discussion. In fact, I'll play the video for you. So, check my audio output on Discord. Yeah, I did, and so I clicked. I'll try again. Audio output, it's on default. I switch it, which default normally works. But now I switched to headset earphone. Let's try that. Okay, Ankar, go ahead, say something.
Hey, man.
There we go, man. There we go. Yeah, you know what the problem is? It's the dumbest thing in the world. So I got this.
You did. Hate me.
I got this. Like, it's just a PS4 control, but if I play like Call of Duty or something on my computer, I plug that in. Sometimes I plug it in, and then on my audio settings, it calls that headset earphone. But then in parentheses, it says controller. So that's what I had it set to. So it was trying to output audio through the control, which isn't going to work. So how you doing, man?
I'm living the dream. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing all right. So yeah, so let's just start with that. Are you saying when you say adopt the strategy of the left?
I didn't want to have this conversation in public, man.
Well, we could do it in private later. But let me say this then. Let me just talk this portion. Stylistically, let me give you this example, and you could watch this video with me. So I debated this person on the left, who's that's no good. Who's a bigger, apparently.
Hop in for a second.
Yeah. Who's this?
It's still me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, we referenced Scott Adams again, or earlier, and just to reference him again, he talks about this as getting inside the delusion. So you can't persuade somebody outside of their own delusion. So you get inside the delusion and then accept all of their parameters as being factual and correct, and it will lead you to an answer that is patently absurd. And that helps weaken the delusion.
Right. But here's And a lot of times that's effective. But here's the potential problem. Who's your audience, right? Because the problem is if you go too far, then the people that really would be likely to come to your side, those that are kind of in the center, they're going to be like, well, you're a lunatic too, and I don't want anything to do with either of these. So, for example, cancel culture. If someone says, like Joy Reid, who's apparently said some slightly homophobic, transphobic things earlier in her career. I hate Joy Reid. Joy Reid shouldn't be on the air because she's a propagandist, right? But because she said these homophobic, transphobic things, if I come out and I'm like, cancel her for being a homophobe, cancel her for being a transphobe, then the big group of people in the center that are tired of cancel culture are like, oh, Rob's no better than the left. Same thing. So why would I support that side? I just want the cancel culture stuff to be done. So I have a tough time endorsing that because I feel that the real audience that I'm trying to affect is just disgusted by it. So they don't want to see it. They don't want to see me going and lighting fires. They don't want to see me, right? And so I'm not going to convince Joy Reid of anything anyways. So why sink to her level and risk alienating a bunch of people that otherwise would be on our side? Now, having said that, rhetorically, when you're having a discussion, if you're not talking about real world consequences like that, so if I just say, oh, Joy Reid, you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, that's different because I'm not calling for the action of her losing her job over that. So I could adapt her position in a more ridiculous way. I don't, does that make sense? Like what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does. It's a really precarious thing.
It definitely is.
Trying to do that dance and not alienate people or, essentially push them away. And it's not easy, man. It's left for people much smarter than myself.
Right. And here's the problem, right? The reason that it's even an issue for us is because we have ethics. Right? And I talk about this a lot. Our greatest strength is our greatest weakness. Like for me, I remember this moment this is burned in my brain from all of the crazy stuff that happened this year. So the George Floyd riots start. They're burning down precincts. They're literally at the gates of the White House trying to break in. They're lighting fires in front of churches in D.C. City after city having all of these massive riots. People like former Officer David Dorn, murdered in cold blood. Shop owners being beaten. You see this stuff. It's everywhere, right? I watch the left over and over go, oh, what violence? Violence? I don't see any. Oh, not everyone on the left, but most of them. I don't see any violence. Or, well, property destruction isn't really violence. Crap like that. Looting's just a form of reparations. Making excuses or ignoring this violence. And then, remember, so that sets the stage for this. Then one morning, Trump decides to go to the church that had a fire set at it from the night before. And he gives a speech holding a Bible. Every leftist I knew contacted me and were like, oh, what'd you think about Trump using pepper spray against that crowd? What'd you think about that? Now, I could have adapted the tactics of the left and been like, I don't give a shit. There was a reason for the violence. Who cares? Proportionally, that amount of violence is 1% compared to the 99 we see from the other side. But I didn't. I said, show me the video. So I watched the video and I was like, okay, first off, I don't think Trump ordered this. So I don't know how you could blame Trump for this. Secondly, let's not forget there was massive violence that occurred in that crowd the night before. However, having said that, I do believe that it was a mistake. That crowd at that time seemed to be peaceful. It seemed like the police launched pepper spray or whatever they used while that crowd was still peaceful. And I saw in that video a few individual officers hitting people that they shouldn't have. Terrible. They should be disciplined. That's my greatest strength and greatest weakness. I was willing to hear the other side out, listen to their criticism, and give a fair judgment of it. So when I do that and then I say, okay, now how about this violence of beating this shopkeeper? How about all this looting of the stores? How about burning down this police precinct? They're like, oh, what? All we're concerned about is that violence from Trump. Trump ordered pepper spray on them. And I use that example all the time because that shows this is my greatest weakness and I need to find a way to overcome this because when I'm having a discussion with people, this is what they do all the time. Look at what Obama did and look at the treatment of Joe Biden of the media, which is 95% on their side, yet they're still wiretapping members of the media like James Rosen, Obama did. Obama prosecuted more whistleblowers than all presidents combined before him. Joe Biden treats the media with animosity anytime, the 1% of the time they ask him some sort of difficult question. And when I bring this up to the left, you know what they say? Trump mean tweets against the media. He mean tweets against the media. Do you think that's acceptable? Do you think when he tweeted to this person that was acceptable? This is what they do.
They're not rational, man.
Well, it's I don't even know if that's the case. For some of them, that's certainly the case. But not rational implies that they don't have a reason for doing. They have a reason.
Well, I mean, okay, maybe that was, a bad way to state it, but there's they're not going to be willing to stay consistent. Like they will abandon consistency for political expediency at any point.
So for me, this all comes from academia, right? So the stage had been set for this for the past, while conservatives and white constitutionally minded people were saying we need to win the next election, these people were saying we're going to take over culture. We're going to infiltrate the entertainment industry. We're going to infiltrate academia. And because of that, once you infiltrate those sorts of things, you basically then get a strong foothold into the youth. And the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. So they were smart. They knew if we indoctrinate people for 3 generations, we got them. Now we can't even trust science. We can't trust science. The CDC, literally, that's science, right? The medical field. The top medical scientists in this country in the CDC literally are saying, we're recommending, our own recommendations are to give vaccines out that will result in more people dying. That's okay, though, they're white. So that's how powerful this infiltration of academia was. And if it could do that in the education field with like the sciences, it could do it with any field, right? And so what happened is, what they'd use is this sort of cultural Marxism, and it comes from postmodernist philosophy. Now, by no means am I an expert on postmodernist philosophy, but I debated it a lot when I was a debater in college. So I've read some of it and I know some of it, right? But they're very smart. The postmodernists aren't stupid, and they're rhetorically very savvy. And it relies on the fact that they could point out things that are wrong that we could all agree with, right? So like every one of us agrees that massive wealth disparity is a bad thing. Every one of us agrees that homeless people is a very bad thing. People without health care is a bad thing. We could all agree to that. And so they say, see bad things. Therefore your system's bad.
But
good.
Do we all agree to it?
Yeah. Is there anyone listening? Because there are things that fundamentally we understand are better for humanity. I don't want to see someone starved.
Who's to decide? Do you know better for humanity?
Yes. Do you think?
Why do you think you know better for humanity?
Because there are fundamental things that we see. That now it's like I'm arguing with the postmodernists. This is exact same type of arguments they make.
Yeah, I mean,
defend rape. Why is rape bad? I saw this on Twitter the other day. Show me the scientific study that shows rape bad. Rape's bad because we all inherently know forcing yourself onto someone in a sexual manner is disgusting, wrong, and it dehumanizes them. That's why rape's bad. I don't need a study to tell me that. Hunger is bad because anyone who's starving to death is inherently bad. It's a terrible thing, and we don't want to see that. Now, we could disagree
I can argue to the contrary for the second thing, but there's another guy.
You can, but you're wrong. You can.
Maybe.
You're gonna argue why starvation's a good thing. That's what you're gonna say.
No. Hold on. There was another guy from Twitch that wanted to hop in and talk to you. I've got a 5-year-old that's telling me it's story time, so I'm out.
All right, man. Yeah, thanks. I'll finish
back in a little while, and I would love to actually,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long I'll go tonight. I'd probably be done by 9. But yeah, someday. It's just crazy with the baby coming and everything. But yeah, we'll have a private conversation someday. So.
Well, it's the private conversation is one thing, but I do enjoy talking to you, and you really you mirror what my buddy that's also in Pennsylvania says a lot. But I don't know. I don't accept, and this is something that I wanted to say to you the other day, and I guess I'll take this opportunity to go ahead and say it. But I don't allow for anyone on the left to set any framing. So whenever you're like, well, starvation is bad, and I'm like, well, why is it? And you say, well, it's objectively bad because it is the suffering of humanity.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, how do you reconcile nature with that view that suffering is bad, because nature is essentially like a chain of suffering a couple billion years old. So, I think that one of the things, and you nailed something that I really would like, to hear more about, and that is that the leftists, the postmodernists, what have you, are rhetorically savvy.
Right.
Um, but I think that you need to stop accepting these givens, no matter how good or bad they may be. And what the leftists will do is they'll essentially force you to deconstruct everything all the way down to its most base level, and that's essentially what.
But that's what you're suggesting I do. That
Yeah.
There is no argument. Let me give you an example. So in debate, well, I'll let you go, and I'll just so you go ahead and finish up, and then I'll talk about it a little.
Well,
after.
and the last thing I wanted to get into, that I actually, the reason I joined Discord, because the violence thing, the summary of it is, my position was always the capacity for violence is demanded.
So obviously the
otherwise there's no point, right? Not the actual violence, just the capacity for it. But the thing that I really wanted to hear you talk a lot about, because you are engaged locally, you're a very well educated guy, and you're pretty sharp, is, and I hope you don't cover this immediately after I leave, because I won't. But essentially, what do we do from here, right? So we're looking at, I think we all need to understand that the probability says that we're in for a Biden presidency. We're probably in for a leftist Supreme Court, because the only justices that I personally trust are Thomas and Alito. We're in for a Democratic Senate, Democratic House, and a Democratic executive branch.
Yeah.
So, and this is what I've been trying to talk to my buddy about, and he can't get off of his soapbox, so we haven't had the discussion to any length. But what do we do from here? So
yeah, I'll talk about that.
The social media presence isn't really a thing that you can do. The long-term generational subversion that the left has embarked upon to infiltrate all these institutions, that's not really a thing, because if you try to infiltrate these institutions in the next 4 to 10 years, you're going to be seen as a heretic, essentially. So that's kind of the discussion that I really wanted to have with you, is, what is it that we do on a ground level? Every person that's listening to you right now, what can those people do in their day-to-day lives? What can they do to help, to resist and to push back a change to a more, a normal America, back to what you talk about, liberty, responsibility, and those things. Because, at some point we have to start addressing, where do we go from here? And what is it that, me, average dude that lives in a house and goes to work, what is it that I need to do from the time that I wake up, outside of work and outside of family? How do I impact the lives of the people around me in a way that will create the change that I wish to see, 6 months, 2 years down? How do I get more involved locally? How do I get people more involved, motivated locally? How do I get, how do I begin to work the machinations of local politics and of state level politics in a way that accomplishes the goal that I think that you, me, and your audience all share? So
okay, yeah, and I'll talk about that at some other point. It is something I talk about quite frequently, but yeah, I will. So thanks for being on. I will.
Man. Have a good night.
Yeah, yep. I'll address kind of the first point, kind of where I was going. So again, the idea of allowing the left to frame the argument, I think that what happens is, this is what the postmodernists do. They're unwilling. This is where I was getting. They're unwilling to accept that there is a such thing as truth. So we had what was called the Enlightenment, and that kind of. We had modernity was the philosophical idea of it. And that idea was that there is right and wrong, that there is a capital T truth, so that we could look and say, this is the right way to do things. We should strive for a culture that looks like this. So you see the shining city on the hill and say, that's what we're reaching for. We'll never get to that perfection, but we could come up with an idea of what the goal is we're striving for. Postmodernists say there is no such thing as truth. Not capital T truth. There's lower T truth, and that is individual truth. So we all have our own individual truths, and there is no such thing as a truth. Right? Now, the truth that honestly, there's a small portion of that that's true, because we might disagree on exactly what this sort of the perfect society would look like or exactly what should go on. But there's certain things that we need to, in order to have a functioning society, that we need to be able to accept. So let me give you an example, and I stole this from Jordan Peterson. It is true, the postmodernists are true. If there's no such thing as truth, then there is an infinite amount of decisions you have at any given moment in your life that are all equally applicable. Well, the truth is there are an infinite amount of decisions. So let's take this moment right here. There are things that I could do. I could keep talking about this topic. I could move on to another topic. I could shut my computer off and end without giving you forewarning. All of those seem within the realm of reason, right? But we understand that there's some reason to those things. I could bash my head off the wall until I'm dead. I could jump out the window. I could start smashing all of the lights in here. I could arbitrarily decide to stop breathing. I could take this water and dump it all over myself. Those are, if there's no such thing as truth and everything is equivalent, all of those would be equal measures. And so the example that's given is like, you could turn on the stove to cook, or you could turn on the stove and force your hand on the stove to burn it off. Yes, I guess, but we understand that there is a capital T truth. There is a right thing to do in that situation. So there's not an infinite amount of ways that we could process something. And by the way, as Jordan Peterson talks about, this is one of the big problems we've had with robotics. The underestimation that engineers had with robotics is it's hard to program a robot to understand how to interact in the world that makes sense. Because the robot doesn't have a value system. They don't know the things that we inherently know. And so it looks at the situation like there's a stove. There are infinite things I could do to interact with that stove. But it doesn't understand, I could use the stove to cook, and cooking is good because it helps keep people from dying and starving. So we could program each individual thing. Here's how you interact with the stove. Here's what it's for. But it's hard for the robot to just look at a random item and come up with that on its own. That sort of programming's hard. So when Ankar there is saying like, well, why do you accept that starvation's bad? This is exactly what the postmodernists do. They'll say, why is starvation bad? Maybe starvation's good. Who are you to say starvation's bad? If we're having a debate about whether or not starvation is good or bad, how can we get to the point where we talk about what policies are best for the country? Now, I'll give you an example. Someone give me an issue out there that you think is really important. I don't care if it's climate change, if it's rape, if it's the Second Amendment, if it's free speech. Whatever the issue is you give me, I can say, well, how do we know that's a good thing? Well, free speech is good because if people can't speak, there's silence. Everyone speaking's bad. And this came up in debate all the time. So, for example, there's a philosopher named Schopenhauer, and Schopenhauer talks about how life is suffering. So I judged the debate. In the context of debate, it's far more complicated than this. But you basically have three... Yeah, every argument's different, don't get me wrong. But in general, in a regular argument, you have three pillars of it. Uniqueness, link, impact. Uniqueness is the way things are now, right? So let's say I say the economy is doing terrible now. The link is, how does a plan change that? My plan would bolster the economy by giving money to people to create jobs. The impact is, what is the outcome of that? Creating jobs stops people from dying, stops us from going to war. Uniqueness, the way things are. Link, how your plan or the other person's plan affects that. And impact, what is the result of that? Why should we care? So if you just, here's the problem though. There's something in between link and impacts that we call internal links. So an internal link might look like this. This might be it. Right now, Israel's getting along with other countries in the Middle East. Your plan, whatever you're going to do, you send pallets of cash to Iran. That causes a disbalance that causes Israel to get into conflict with countries in the Middle East. That conflict will lead to a regional hot war. Now, you might say that's the impact, but maybe that's just the internal link, because the real impact is, and that hot war will lead to World War III, which leads to the end of us all. So does everyone understand that? I know I'm talking in debate terms. This sounds stupid, but this is how I think. If you accept the postmodernist logic, there is never a final impact because there is no truth. So let's go through that again. Ready? Israel's having peaceful relations in the Middle East. Biden's plan to send cash and get back in the Iran deal will destabilize the Middle East. That causes conflict between Israel and countries in the Middle East. That causes World War III. As a postmodernist, I could say, good, World War III is a good thing. And you're there and you're saying, why? How could you say that? Because life is suffering. And so if we just had a nuclear war and ended it all, that would be preferable. Or because humans are bad, they're destroying the earth, so better to wipe us all out. But I could go further if there's no such thing as postmodernism. So I say, this causes World War III, that's a bad thing. You then respond with Schopenhauer. You say, humans are horrible, they're terrible people, they rape other people, they cause suffering, human trafficking, all this stuff. So good, we deserve to all be wiped out. I say, I counter that by saying, you're right, human beings are terrible, and the planet is suffering. Life is suffering. But that's exactly why you shouldn't give us a quick, painless death. Force humans to survive in this hellhole because we're all such terrible people. And it could go ad infinitum. That's what happens. And when you debate these, I've done it dozens of times. Well, why should we have private property rights? Why should it? Why should private property exist? Why should people be allowed to own anything? Why should they? Why should people be allowed to have free speech? Why should people be allowed to have locks on their doors? And you're starting to see how unfair. Why shouldn't we teach 12-year-olds about all kinds of crazy sex? Why shouldn't we advocate for hormone blockers for children? Why should it be illegal to intentionally infect someone with HIV? This is shit that's real in the Democratic Party and that people on the left argue. So I fundamentally disagree with Ankar when he says, well, don't leave the left frame anything. If we do that, then we've lost all communication. If you don't believe in some sort of truth or some sort of values, then communication's impossible. And if communication's impossible, conversation's impossible, then violence is inevitable. And so I reject the premise that in order to own the left, that I should just start playing that game where I'm just like, well, nothing's real, nothing's real, nothing's real, nothing's real. But anyways, getting back to it, this postmodernism... Someone tell me to play for... Oh, they're arguing with each other. Back to postmodern, because they don't believe in truth, right? What the postmodernists believe is that everything's a power struggle, right? So if you read like Foucault, Heidegger, and people like that, everything's a power struggle. So when I'm talking to you right now, this isn't me imparting communication to you. It's me trying to be in a position of dominance over everyone that's listening to me. When you respond back, that's you trying to be in a position of dominance. So we're not trying to get to some sort of truth. It's just a power game. And because of that, people that believe in this postmodernist philosophy, which has its roots in critical race theory, all of this garbage you see now in the left that's came out of academia, they don't care. That's why they don't care about being hypocrites. There is no such thing as hypocrisy because there is no truth. Everything's a power struggle. So why would you if there is no truth, then who cares what tactic they use in order to win their power struggle over you? They'll say, you can't do X. You can't violate social distance orders, they'll say. And then they'll say, but we can violate social distance orders. And if you don't like that, tough shit. There's no such thing as truth. And if there's no such thing as truth, you can't say what I'm doing. You can't say there's right and wrong. And if there's no such thing in right and wrong, then it doesn't matter what I as an individual do morally. Doesn't matter. All that matters is I think my idea is right and I can do whatever I want to achieve it. That's all that matters. And so if I want to censor you, that's fine. If I want to be a blatant hypocrite and force things on you that I'm unwilling to do myself, that's perfectly fine. So it's not, there are people that are irrational. There are. But many of them, it's intentional. They don't care that they're hypocrites. Now, I will play, so this person, Vosh, that I debated, who's a bigger left-wing streamer. I didn't know much about him, but he's a bigger streamer. So I saw this video yesterday, which you might be interested in, which kind of applies to what we're saying.
So obviously the premise of this comic is ludicrous. If you're taking a look at the actual amount of violence committed, white nationalism does far more harm to the world than Antifa ever could, and we've yet to have an Antifa shooting. Antifa has yet to kill a single person. Oh, now they're killing people? Oh yeah, we're in the description. Oh god. Oh. Don't worry about it. Dayton shooter. Anyway, this is so obviously the premise of this.
Oh, don't worry about it. You see, they don't care about the hypocrisy. They could have just said, oh, well, yeah, that's terrible. But he didn't. Now, that's not even the best example of hypocrisy, because I saw that. Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that murder. Don't worry about it. Right? But then there's this video that's even better. Now, this is a long one, so bear with me. Now, what's important here, what I want you to, and I'll even make it full screen for you. What I want you to focus on here is, look at the virtue signaling that's occurring, right? Where this is about rape culture, and he's going to tell you rape culture is worse than even the academics tell you, right? And as evidenced by these women in this video. So he's taking, what he's doing is virtue signaling that they call it like being a white knight. He's a male feminist. By the way, some of the most dangerous people for women. Over and over, we see these predatory men that actually seek to sexually abuse women, pretend to be an ally of them, a male feminist, and then take advantage of that position. It happens over and over. I'm not saying that's what Vosh is doing, or Vaush, however you pronounce his name, but you see that that does happen a lot. What he's doing, though, is he's white knighting. Oh, I care about these women. I'm virtue signaling. Oh, my God, rape culture, rape culture, rape culture. Now, you got to watch to the end, because remember that. Remember, he really cares about women, really cares about rape culture. Believe all women. How dare people talk about things like false accusations, right? Just remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because I'm over here.
Just, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna. Here, wait, hold on. I should probably move my webcam down because I'm like blocking their faces. I've been doing it the whole video. I just want to say, do you think it maybe speaks a little bit to the fact that we have a rape culture when we put 6 people in a room together to talk about Me Too, and when they're like, hey, who of you have experienced sexual assault, and the 4 women sit down and they've all been raped and they all can barely choke out a coherent sentence. Like, do we think this perhaps maybe slightly speaks to the fact that there's a problem? Like, Me Too has gone too far. False allegations are ruining people's lives. Okay. Who among you have experienced sexual assault? And like every woman in the room starts crying. Like, almost every female friend I have has been the recipient of sexual assault or violence or rape or whatever at some point in their lives. Seriously, it's such a common thing. I think 1 in 4 is.
By the way, if your group of friends and group of people that you're connected to, every single woman's being raped, you really ought to question the group of people you're hanging around with. Because I believe that's probably a flat out lie. If not, you're hanging around with some really shitty dudes. That all the people, men and women you're connected to, all the women have been raped. That's insane. It's a lie is what it is, but continuing.
Probably understating it significantly. I wouldn't be surprised if the rate for sexual assault on women over one's lifetime was as high as 1 in 3 or 1 in 2. We just don't know because nobody fucking reports, because reports aren't taken seriously. That's what Me Too is about.
Here, like, I don't think things are on the same level, but things impact you in like bizarre ways. But yeah, like, because the perpetrator wasn't white, and because he was like, I'm, part of like a certain religion.
Wait, are we being real?
And the police were basically just like, we can't because of cultural differences, which I don't feel like is such a good.
What? Bullshit! Are you fucking kidding me? Did she turn her fucking rape confession onto how the rape fugees fucking Ahmed Muhammad raped her and the police were like, oh, we can't persecute brown people? Bullshit!
Did you get that? Did you get that? You see what happened there? 1 in 2 people are raped. It's because we have a society that says false accusations and women won't come forward because they're afraid people will shame them. 5 seconds later, oh, One of the groups that I feel need protected, that I care about because I'm a racist and I only care about certain groups, and I think that certain groups, because he's engaged in cultural Marxism. So, people of color, they're always victims. They could do no wrong. They could do no wrong. So women, they're all raped. They're a group that needs to be protected. But he thinks people of color are above that group. So if you're a woman and you're raped by a person of color, you have to shut your mouth. Now, that's not exactly what he's saying. Let me be honest here. This is the problem. This is the hypocrisy. It's what he's saying. He's saying the reason women won't come forward is because people treat them like crap and accuse them of lying if they do come forward. And then immediately a woman comes forward and gives her story and he says, bullshit, you're lying. You're being a racist. He literally, 5 seconds after he identifies this massive problem, and it's a problem that he's claiming has very serious consequences, that half of women in this country are being raped because people shout down them when they try to come forward with their rape allegations. 5 seconds later, he proceeds to do that very thing and shout down a rape allegation. He doesn't care. The left doesn't care. And when I just posted this video, it was like, oh, that's funny. Of course, someone had to come to his defense. And that person, I don't care. Normally I don't do this, but I don't care. Let's see here what this person says. The totally realistic claim that cops didn't pursue a rape case because it wasn't PC. Okay, buddy. So he's saying that, yeah, that's garbage. There would never be a situation where cops wouldn't pursue a rape case because of political correctness. Now, I could go through the rest of this thread. Maybe I will. We'll see. This literally happened over and over and over and over again in the UK. What is it now? 9, 10 cities in the UK now? For over 30 years, tens of thousands, I believe the number's up to, of young girls raped in grooming gangs by Pakistani Muslims. And the police knew about it. Now, we know why the police didn't do anything. You know, why would they? What incentive did the police have? Oh, there's a bunch of rapes occurring, but we're not going to intervene. What's their incentive? No one's arguing that actually happened. We know that happened. It's just, what's their motivation? So here's the arguments I've heard from the left. They're just lazy. Does that sound right? Do you know how many families they had constantly calling in, fighting against the police, saying, my daughters are being raped? I'm too lazy to do anything. Does that sound right to you? If you're lazy, wouldn't you, cut back on traffic tickets and stop the rapist? Isn't that something you would do? Can anyone else think of a reason? That's right, they arrested the guy reporting on it. That's exactly right. Now, we've since had actual reports that came out with the police admitting, I was afraid of being called a racist. We didn't want to stir up racial tensions. I provide evidence for that, and the person on Twitter's like, I Googled this and I didn't see that, and Now, where does this fit in? So, with what I was talking with Ankar about is this. I don't mind adopting the tactics of the left then, rhetorically, to kind of show their absurdity. So, understand here that Valsh's argument was basically virtue signaling. Oh, all these women are raped and we don't take it seriously and we claim that there's false allegations and things like that. Virtue signaling, right? So that's what I'll do when I'm dealing with him. Because if I just say this is wrong and I approach it rationally, they're not going to listen. So let's see what happens when Valsh's little supporter here says, I post this, quote, the 5-year investigation conducted by the IOPC, codenamed Operation Linden, has produced a highly critical report. It states that the South Yorkshire police were scared to take action against a group of Asian men. That's what they call, because even the media is complicit in this too. Asian men? Do you think this was people from Vietnam? Was it people from China? People from Japan? People from Russia? That's Asia. No, it was Pakistani Muslims. That's who it was. They say, well, if you say that, that's unfairly disparaging all Muslims. How aren't they unfairly disparaging all Asians? You see their stupidity? Against a group of Asian men who were sexually abusing a young girl for fear of triggering unrest in the Asian community and being branded racist. Instead, they did little to disrupt the gang and safeguard the vulnerable victim and other young girls, even though they knew they were being subjected to horrendous sexual abuse. Now remember, this person's claim is, oh yeah, totally realistic claim this woman had that the cops didn't pursue a rape case because it wasn't PC. So in other words, he's claiming that this alleged rape victim is lying. Now, my side, the side of not trying to virtue signal, says this. Each rape allegation should be taken seriously, but should be weighed on its individual merits. There are going to be false accusations. Absolutely. We should look at the story and see if it makes sense to the best of our ability. That's my take on it. But that wasn't Vosh's take, was it? Oh, women are afraid to come forward because we claim that these were, false accusations and blah, blah, blah. And then he immediately does. So this person's defending him. So he says, one, the girl in the video is Australian, not British. So, sorry, let me bring this back up. And who cares? His claim was, yeah, right, like cops would never not pursue a rape case because of PC. So who cares where this specific story comes? It doesn't matter if she's from Australia, Zimbabwe, New Zealand, Detroit. Who cares? His claim was anytime a woman would claim that law enforcement was unwilling to investigate her rape because of political correctness, that's clearly bullshit. Okay, well, it happened tens of thousands of times in the UK. Oh, well, that's the UK, not Australia. What does one have to do with the other? Oh, so it's okay to disparage Australian women when they say that the police didn't investigate their rape. You could make fun of, but not British women? Is that his claim? What the hell sense does this make? Second, there doesn't seem to be anything called Operation Linden, though there is a report that seems to be talking about the things. It hasn't concluded nearly the things this article claims. The article literally has police officers quoted, chiefs of the police saying, yeah, we were afraid to investigate this because of... But just like you see on the left, they make an outrageous claim, you provide evidence, and they say, oh, I'm not happy with the evidence. Not happy with it. Thanks, Ramon. He says, Douglas Murray talked about this on Sam Harris's show. It's unchilling what he described of what happened in Telford. Oh, I've watched Douglas Murray over and over about this. And it's an incident. The reason that I'm fascinated by this incident is because it is a level of horror and evil that you can almost not comprehend. And the UK is a very similar country to the United States. In the UK, for 30 years, gangs, in the name of being politically correct, they allowed gangs of rapists to molest and rape girls as young as 8, 9 years old. Grooming's not just a one-time rape either. Most of the time it involves repeated rapes over and over and gang rapes. So imagine your 10-year-old sister, daughter, friend, cousin being raped over and over by groups of adult men. The incidents that the girls talk about, by the way, they quote from the Quran to them over and over and explain to them that they were targeted specifically for being white and that the Quran says that they're impure, they're kafar. That's what these victims said. Could the victims be lying? I guess. But isn't it funny how the people on the left accept anytime someone accuses Donald Trump or a Republican or someone that they don't like of rape, well, then it must be taken as gospel. # believe all women. But when we have tens of thousands of girls saying, this is what they did and why they did it. Oh, no, we can't believe that. Can't believe it. One story I heard of, and it's one of the hardest things I've ever heard. Again, it's anecdotal. Maybe it didn't happen. But we do know for a fact that there were these, in all of these cities, there were these grooming gangs. They would take girls in, they would drug them, and then they would gang rape them. And we know for a fact that there were large groups of people who said, this needs to stop. They went to the police did nothing. And oftentimes, these very reports said that it was the parents and the actual victims that the cops treated with hostility. So if your daughter is being raped, you go to the police won't do anything, so you show up, and the police arrest you. One story I heard of said, guy knew his daughter's being gang raped, being groomed. Police do nothing. He tries to intercede. The police stop him. And so one night he goes home, and the people that are gang raping his daughter call his phone and put it on audio. There is not a thing in this world that would keep me from trying to, in the most brutal fashion possible, exact painstakingly long revenge on them immediately. Vosh and this person I'm arguing with, they would say, that has to be a lie. That rape victim is lying. She's lying. Even though the police have admitted and investigations have admitted tens of thousands of these rapes occurred. They were lying. They had to be lying. Why? Because of cultural Marxism. Muslim people are victims. They can't be oppressors. So white lady, shut your mouth. You got gang raped when you were 12 years old? So what? It had to happen. It's worth it. Because, the brown people, people of color, it's worth it. If you accuse them, racists might use that. So shut up and take your rape so I can feel like a good person and virtue signal. It's a small price to pay that you were raped so I could go on my channel and say, see how much of a good person I am? Wow, I'm such a good person. I stick up for all the people that are inferior to me, like people of color and women. I need to protect them because I know better than them. I'm better than them. Anyways, one of the things that happened, this happened over and over and over. Now they've started to go after some of these grooming gangs. But all the police and the politicians that knew about this, and we know they knew, they admit they knew. How many of them have been criminally charged? And when someone like Tommy Robinson, which I haven't liked everything he's done or everything he said, but he called this stuff out before anyone was, and you could understand why he'd be a little pissed off when it was happening in his town. When he comes out and speaks on it, the vitriol against him from the British people is stronger than the vitriol against the grooming gangs and against the police officers and the politicians that allowed these to occur. Tens of thousands of rapes over 30 years. Oh, we're really pissed off about Tommy Robinson. Geez, if only you had 10% of that anger for the actual people raping the girls or the police officers and politicians that allowed it to occur. You don't have any outrage for them. But hey, you look good on Facebook, right? I don't like Tommy. He's a racist. Yay, virtue signal. What's that? Tens of thousands of girls got raped, so I can sit here and virtue signal? Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. Yay, virtue signaling. If that could happen, if we're talking about children being ritualistically gang raped, and that's not enough to get people off their asses and fired up to change the system, we think that a stolen election's going to? We'll see. We'll just go with a little more of this thread. So he doesn't accept my evidence. He doesn't present counter evidence. I don't know if you just Googled Muslim rape gangs and picked the first article, but this is literally proof of nothing outside editorializing an ongoing investigation. I say no. The article clearly says police admitted to allowing gang rapes to continue for fear of being called racist. We know any woman claiming police didn't investigate being raped by people of ethnicity you claim are victims must be lying racist. This is the point I'm trying to make. So I'm just going to adapt their policy. I'm just going to continue to say, you're a rape apologist. You're a horrible person. You're horrible. That's it. That's how they treat us. That's what Vosh was doing. Oh, if you question any person's story, this is horrible. That's what causes women to not come forward. So I'm going to use the same tactic against them. And watch how it works. Now, just like anything on the left, they think they could punch you, they could malign you, they could censor you, they can call your boss and get you fired. As soon as you do, and I'm not even doing any of that serious stuff, just rhetorically going with the same strategy that they do, watch how quickly he cries about it. I say, yep, it's a lie. Women raped by ethnicities you favor must be lying. It's a misrepresentation of facts. There's truth in there for me to find out what they're referencing. What a lying liar you are. It's hard to sleep at night knowing you lie like this. I say, I sleep fine not calling women liars about their rape story based on the ethnicity of their alleged rapist. But hey, for you, women being raped are a small price to pay for your virtue signaling. He says, you sound like a SJW. Did you use Tumblr a lot? Where'd you talk about virtue signaling when literally every person you made here had lethal levels of, well, you don't care about women? I said, the virtue signaling racist, fake feminist left like you hate when your rhetoric's used against you. I say, damn, I wish I was a cool lefty like you who calls rape victims liars and racist. And he just keeps saying I'm virtue signaling. I say, pointing out left-wing hypocrisy, virtue signaling against rape culture, then immediately claiming a rape victim is lying isn't me virtue signaling. Pointing out your BS calling this alleged rape victim a liar isn't either. And he keeps saying I'm virtue signaling. I also then later posted more articles. But do you see how it works? They virtue signal. You tell them how stupid it is. They don't respond. So you just approach it from the more opposite. Oh, so you hate women. You think that only people that are only women raped by white people are to be taken seriously, right? That's your argument? Well, then clearly you're a rape apologist and you hate women. Well, how would you say that? That's not fair. That's not charitable. That's not charitable. You saw that in the video I did yesterday. The person says, you think that anytime the FBI says anything, you just instinctively say it's wrong. No, that's not what I said. I said that I'm not going to trust the FBI at face value anymore because they've lied to me so many times and been wrong so many times. So until they show me proof, I don't believe them. But that's different than saying if the FBI comes out and says, tomorrow the sun will come up. I'm not going to say, no, it won't, because the FBI said it, and the FBI is always wrong. The preponderance of evidence shows, yes, in this case, they're right. But I'm not just going to take their word for, this hack occurred from this group. No, show me proof. You've lied too many times. You engaged in a coup against a duly elected president of this country. And so then I turn it on him and say, oh, you believe anything the FBI says. Rob, that's not being very charitable. That's not charitable to me. Do you see how they are? That's the point. And so the reason I bring this up wasn't this individual conversation, but I'm just going to start approaching it more from their side. I'm just going to start calling them racist all the time to put them on the back foot. Black Lives Matter is a racist organization. Not just racist against white people, racist against black people. As far as I know, it is completely predictable that the strategy of, for example, getting rid of the police in high crime areas will predictably make lives worse for black individuals in those communities. Therefore, because it's predictable and yet it's still being endorsed by Black Lives Matter, I have no choice but to claim Black Lives Matter hates black people. They hate them. They want them to suffer. They're racist. If you spend all of your time virtue signaling, the inner city community, the black community, blah, 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 blah. That's because you think that you need to speak for them because you're a racist. You don't think that they're individuals. You think they're all one community because you're a racist. And that's how I'm going to operate from now on. What has the FBI lied about? It's great, Azam. That's a great point. Good question. We can't think of anything the FBI lied about. I mean, we could start with the fact that the IG report showed that the FBI lied or omitted things 17 times, and that's not even including the Woods procedures that they violated 220 something times in order to spy on the Trump campaign. So there's that. I don't know. So much so that James Comey and Rod Rosenstein, who signed the FISA warrants, claimed that had they been told the truth by the other people at the FBI, they would have never signed the FISA warrants. But I wonder what they lied about. Huh. And again, I always love it. Sometimes I wonder if people like Azam aren't really like conservatives that come on just to make left-wing people look bad. What has the FBI lied about? I immediately start talking about what they lied about. No evidence of voter fraud. This is what they do. I could sit here for the next 3 hours and show evidence of voter fraud if it existed. And Azam would just move on to yeah, but Trump said to drink bleach. And then when I showed he didn't say that, yeah, but Trump said Nazis are good people. And then when I showed he didn't do that, yeah, but Trump mocked a disabled person. And then when I show he didn't do that, yeah, but Trump ate 2 scoops of ice cream. That's how people like Azam operate. That's what they do. They just change the subject. This is who this is who a bulk of the left is. This is what they do. They don't, people like Azam here, and I'll give him a chance to apologize. I don't know. But so people use the tactic that it seems Azam's doing. They don't care about truth. This is exactly what it's. They are hypocrites and they love it. They will make any excuse. If Joe Biden or Barack Obama would have went out and been like, we have to rape people in Pakistan, or we have to rape people now in Syria. We have to rape them. We have to get Assad and rape him. People like Azam would be like, yes, yes. In fact, if you're not for Barack Obama saying we need to rape these people, and that means that you're anti-women. That's what that means. Just like, if we don't bomb these poor people and leave troops in Syria, then clearly you're xenophobic. That's who they are. And then it's just empty I apologize to the world for Trump's embarrassment. I apologize to the world for your embarrassment, Azam. I'm not going to show you shit for proof of voter fraud, because even if I did, you will just change the subject. Just like you did. The FBI lied? Where? As soon as I show, you're like, voter fraud? Voter fraud? because there is no... Azam, you think you have some zinger here. I've made my point quite clear. The election was stolen before the election even occurred. By changing the law to these mail-in voting that we knew was rife with corruption, by changing laws in Pennsylvania to allow signatures to not have to match the voter registration form, by having a almost total control of the flow of information controlled by tech companies, the mainstream media, and the intel agents. They actually censored the oldest newspaper in the country for reporting things 2 weeks before an election that was critical of Joe Biden. We're told by people like Azam that 12 Russian trolls posting on Facebook was enough to help steal the election in 2016, that we had to have constant investigations over. But almost the entirety of the mainstream media, tech companies, intel community, academia, entertainment, corporations in this country being in bed with Joe Biden to the point where they were censoring people putting credible news stories that we now know were true because the FBI has been investigating about the Bidens. When they censored those stories, no problem. They don't think there's any problem with that. So yes, the election was stolen. I've said this, they don't have to change one ballot. The truth is, no matter how much one candidate sucks or the other candidate sucks, we're never going to have I won't say never. It's going to be very rare to see one candidate win like 80% of the vote. At best, it's going to be like 40, 60. So all you got to do is flip that 10% in the middle and you win the election. When one side is corrupt and basically has state-sponsored propaganda working with tech companies and the media, or let me put it this way, as Professor Robert Epstein has said, Google itself, because so many people rely on Google and YouTube, which they own, for their information, their algorithm and things like that, have the ability to sway 15 million votes. Yes, the fact that Google is in the tank with the Democratic Party and censoring conservatives in the name of Joe Biden and getting the establishment Democrats elected, yes, that's election theft. They don't have to steal one ballot, and that was already election theft. Now, as far as proof that there were things that day, I can't prove it. I can't. I've said it over and over again. There's evidence. For example, there's hundreds of people that have signed affidavits showing actual things that they saw as being corrupt. Now, are all those people lying? I don't know. But I don't talk about it much because until they're given their day in court to be able to present this, how can I evaluate their claims? It's their claim. What's the response? It's funny that the left doesn't want to hear their response. They don't want to hear these things come to court. I wonder why. By the way, the left in 2002, they successfully got Ralph Nader in Pennsylvania kicked off the ballot in Pennsylvania by arguing that the signatures required for him to get on the ballot didn't match their voter registrations. Therefore, those signatures should be dispelled. Isn't that funny how the Democrats, they cared about voter registration signatures when it benefited them, and now they say you're a horrible person if you want to look into it. Isn't that weird how that works? Bro, that was 18 years ago. Oh my God. Like, yeah, we have a total double standard, but it was 18 years ago, so it's totally cool. And? So it's okay to be a hypocrite in that sense. You don't think that the exact same thing wouldn't happen again? If there was if Bernie Sanders ran as a third party in 2024, you don't think that the Democrats would do everything they could to get him off the ballot? Of course they would. Then we have other things, like, for example, they stopped counting ballots in the middle of the night in 5 swing states. Only those 5 swing states. Only then to restart counting, even though they told people that they were done for the night. The ballots that came in after that were 90% for Joe Biden in most of these states. Now, why did they stop counting? That's not proof that there was fraud. It's not. But it's an anomaly and it deserves an answer, and we haven't been given an answer. In 4 of those states, the 5th state, Georgia, did give us an answer. They said it was because a water main broke, and that was a lie. They got caught in their own lie. Why would they lie? If you're doing a fair election process, why would you lie about why you stopped counting? Oh, it's because that water main broke, so, we had to stop. Actually, no water main broke. Oh! Yeah, we lied. But trust us, there's nothing going on here. It's totally fair. I don't know, in Pennsylvania, and I do have a problem. Look, I've called out people, by the way, that have made claims of voter fraud that I just don't see evidence for. For example, there was things going around that claimed to be from Real Clear Politics showing that 130% of registered voters in Pennsylvania voted. In other words, the amount of people that were registered to vote, 30% more than that voted. That was bullshit. Those numbers were fudged. So I'm hesitant, and I totally understand if there are Biden supporters out there that go, look, yeah, there's a lot of anomalies. Like, you could just see from the numbers, there's an anomalies. Like the fact that Joe Biden, that couldn't get 10 people at his rally, somehow received more votes than Barack Obama. The fact that he lost so many more counties than Obama, but the ones he won was somehow enough to put him over the edge. The fact that he lost so many people of color percentage-wise to Obama, but still he was able to win like that. The fact that all of these bellwethers that we have, that we say, well, if someone wins Florida, Ohio, etc., they win, all of a sudden that didn't happen. Those are all anomalies, but none of that's proof of fraud. I totally agree. That's not proof of fraud. But it makes you scratch your head and you're like, maybe we should look into this. Why wouldn't we want to look in? We understand that fraud's possible. And the Democrats, they believe the Democrats believe that Trump was Hitler so bad that they were embracing riots or making excuses for them. I said over and over, if you think that the Democrats are willing to send old people predictably into nursing homes, which causes deaths, so they could look at the deaths and say, look how bad Trump's doing. Hey, I'm Governor Cuomo. I forced nursing homes to accept COVID patients, which led to tens of thousands of people dying in nursing homes. And then I looked at those tens of thousands of deaths and said, boy, Trump's doing a real bad job. Look at all these old people dying in my state. If they were willing to do that, you don't think they were willing to engage in a little bit of election fraud? But I understand a Biden supporter saying, look, I want proof positive before I accept that there was election fraud. Totally agree. So why is the Democratic Party fighting tooth and nail to make sure that these things don't get to court? What's the possible explanation for why we shouldn't match voter registration? Particularly when you completely overhauled how we vote in so many states. If there was ever a time to make sure, okay, let's double check and make sure these results were accurate. Now, I do know this, Russ Diamond, who's a state rep here in Pennsylvania, who I actually really like, he signed a statement here earlier today that there's two ways that you could count the votes, or two places you could go to get the count of how many people voted and who they voted for. The counties and the districts, right? So each county will say, 100,000, or, that'd be ridiculous. In Pennsylvania, what would Clarion County be? Maybe like 30,000 people voted in this county. 22,000 were for Trump, 8,000 was for Biden, something like that. So when you add up all the counties, that total of the people that voted allegedly is 200,000 less than what the state's saying. So let's just say your state had 50 counties. Each county says 10,000 people voted. That's 500,000 total votes. But if the state's saying actually there were 700,000 votes, where'd the 200,000 votes come from? Now, they could be wrong. I will fully admit, I don't know. And that's one of the major problems. How the hell do we have a system where why are places like New York and California still counting votes like 3 weeks later? That's ridiculous. And why is it that the average American can't easily get on and say, was my vote counted? Yes, it was. How many people voted in my district? Who did they vote for? All of us should be able to have that information almost instantaneously. We should all be able to easily get that information. But it's near impossible. Good luck. And again, this is what I warned you of, Azam, particularly just left-wing talking points. He'll just switch from one thing to another. That's all he'll be able to do. But this is what I told you. You give Azam. I told you that the Republicans and that these institutions are corrupt. Right? I told you that. I said, when you say, no, Bill Barr, he's a straight shooter. John Durham, he's a straight shooter. Jeff Sessions, he's a straight shooter. Appointed by Trump, these guys really got Trump's back. Then when they're corrupt and they don't, that allows people like Azam to go, oh, well, Trump appointed Bill Barr and he didn't do anything. Proof that there was no corruption. Oh, all the Republicans told me, Amy Coney Barrett, Kavanaugh, they're not going to screw Trump over. So if even they didn't vote for this, it proves that there was no corruption. So this is what happens when you put your faith in these systems and say, how did I know it? I told you all. I said, there's no way the courts will overrule this. None. Why would you trust the very institutions that have proven over and over again that they hate you in this country? Why would you? The same Supreme Court that said in Nevada, you can't go to church, but you can go to the casino. That's the body that you're trusting right now. No, I'm not in denial. I accurately predicted all of this stuff occurring, and I accurately call out your rhetorical strategy, which is nothing. You're just vacuous. You just repeat the exact same talking points that everyone does. Why would the Supreme Court... First off, what the Supreme Court did was roll on standing, and I have to admit, they didn't look at the merits of the case. They said that basically Texas doesn't have the right to claim that they're aggrieved by other states having the system that they want. That could theoretically be true by the letter of the law. I don't know. It's not a question of whether or not this fraud actually occurred. It's just saying we don't think that you're an aggrieved party that could bring this suit to us. That could be true. I don't know. But I'll tell you this. The same reason the Supreme Court wouldn't do anything is the reason that Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham wouldn't. Because Trump screwed up. Because Trump said, I'm going to fight the swamp, and then appointed a bunch of swamp people. That's why. And it's so funny when my entire criticism is both of these parties are corrupt and our system's corrupt. For people like Azam, their counter to that is always the big brain take of, well, if you're right, then why are the Republicans against Trump? Well, my entire argument is they're corrupt. That's why. Yeah, but they're against Trump, so that disproves your argument, right? No. I'm saying, of course, I agree with you. They're against Trump. I agree. They're corrupt. The establishment Democrat and Republican Party are corrupt. So I'm not surprised that establishment Republican politicians are going against Trump. Yeah, but it's clear that the establishment isn't corrupt because the Republicans, they're going against Trump. Yes, we get your big brain take, Azam. We get it. We get that take. I've dealt with that take a million times. It was stupid then. It continues to be stupid now. Come on, bro. Hey, man, come on. Like, if Amy Coney Barrett said that Trump didn't have standing with this case, so, like, that has to be the gospel. It has to because Trump appointed her. So it's that simple. It's that simple. By the way, but it is, I'm glad you're here, Azam, because do you see now those on the right? Azam's not the only person that thinks like this, by the way. There are those group of, yes, it seems clear that he's an indoctrinated leftist that doesn't have an original thought. So, but that's not really the target audience, right? What's the point of talking to him? He proved it. And by the way, I'm not just saying that because he disagreed. He proved it by, he said, oh, show me with the FBI lies. What? Show me that. And then as soon as I did, he's like, well, there was a voter fraud. Because this is what they do. They're not interested in an actual conversation. Every time you crush them in a topic, they'll just jump to another topic until they think they could get some sort of moral victory. So, Tom, who I like, so I will respond, says the GOP allies on his side that won re-election aren't claiming there was fraud in their own re-election. And that's actually a fair point that I talked about on my channel. So let's say you're in the state of Pennsylvania, right? And let's say if your claim is we can't trust the results of this election because there was so much fraud and we're not sure who was voting, blah, blah, blah. That would mean if you won your election, you should also say, I can't trust that result. Right? You would call for a complete new vote. You would say, we can't trust this. But instead, they'll say, we think the election was stolen for Trump, but our election was legit. And I agree with you, Tom. I do see the hypocrisy in that. Now, there is a nuanced way they can make the argument, right? They could say, look, we think that it's clear that the majority of this, certainly there could be fraud that goes both ways, but the majority of the fraud that we see coming from these areas that were all these anomalies that were coming in for the Democratic candidates, we would totally be for a new vote for our seats and for the presidency and all the other seats in Pennsylvania. We would be for that. But we're not going to step down if they allow this corrupt vote to continue and say, well, we're not going to accept our seats because it was corrupt. They could say something like that, but right, of course they haven't made the argument. I agree, Tom. Like, you're preaching to the choir. And you're absolutely correct to make that argument. There is tension there. I totally agree. And the Republicans, if they were smart, they would be reaching out to people like Tom, who, although might vote Democrat, he's by no means like a strict party line voter. I'd say centrist. For those of you who don't know, Tom ran my election campaign. So even though he's a Democrat and we disagree on some policies, ultimately we both understand that we both have we're tired of a system that doesn't really help out the average person. We might have slight differences on how we think it's the best way to approach that. So we should be reaching out to people like Tom. So I agree with you, Tom. Like, I think that they haven't done a good job explaining it. You know? I told you that Trump wasn't the only one who said he could make an executive order for election fraud. You said that's wrong. Rob didn't give any reasons, and neither did you. I don't understand the context of the conversation, but as far as executive orders, I think that Trump's the only person that could issue an executive order. Maybe at the state level, you could have governors or people like that issue executive orders. Again, the reality is the Republicans didn't want Trump to win. Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, they don't want Trump to win. They want to go back. They don't even care if the Republicans win in Georgia. They don't care. They're more than happy to be the minority party. They love it. They sound good then. Roar, everything's wrong. Everything's bad. The Democrats are bad. Obama's bad. We'd change everything. We'd repeal it. And then as soon as they're in power, they're like, oh, yeah, we did tell everyone we were going to deal with healthcare if we were in charge. Sorry, we have no ideas. Anyways, let's give money to big corporations, but screw over the average person some more. We'll sign the Defense Authorization Act and override Trump's veto. But no, we can't be bothered. The people that we endorse these lockdowns and crush them economically, we can't be bothered to send them a helping hand. Can't do that. Not enough money. We just gave all the money to big business. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party at the top level are the same party. Tell me what? I read what Puck says. He says the issue is executive orders that are not constitutional, not the subject of the order. Okay, I don't know what the context of your conversation is, though. So, but all right, I got 4 minutes, and then I'll be. Can I canvas? And this is how you could tell that people like, is it so Azam, and there's so many people on the left that are like, oh, you're calling out. See, I actually, unlike you, the faux left, I actually will call out my party and mean it. And they look at it like, yeah, you're right, dude. Hey, dude, go to Georgia and talk about the GOP being bad. Now, I'm a good Democrat, so I'm perfectly fine when I talk about all my values and caring about the working man. I'm fine when Joe Biden fucks them all over because I'm a corporate man. I'll do whatever the leadership tells me. And you're stupid and you call out your own side. Not like us lefties. We're so smart. Yeah, we get it, Azam. I get what you're saying. Now, I will not be going to Georgia to canvass for the Democratic Party. I will continue to talk about how both parties are basically the same and the GOP continues to screw over people that they claim to be representing. Because I'm a person that actually has standards and actually has a moral integrity that I seek to live by, unlike people like you that will say, oh, I won't criticize my side. I don't criticize them at all. Instead, I just say lies about Trump, and then when they're disproven, I just change the subject. We get it. We get your big brain take. No, I will. Why would I publicly support a party that I think's just as bad, if not worse? I actually think the Democrats are worse. But thanks, Azam. Man, you've really big brain takes coming today. Big brain takes. If you followed the show for any amount of time, which I've seen you on here before, Azam, you would know that I actually said that I wanted Trump to win. Don't get me wrong. But if Trump was going to lose, that I wish he would lose in a landslide or not Trump. If the Republicans were going to lose, I wish they'd lose in a landslide because then we could get some of these horrible people out of there. And this Democrat should have hoped the exact same thing. I have no love for the progressives as a movement. I think some of them are good people, but as far as the policies of them, I think are terrible. I think that like the equity focus, the socialism, communism crap is horrible. It's disastrous. I really do. But if you're embracing that ideology because you think it'll actually help people out, I don't have a problem with you as a person morally. I just think you're wrong. That's all. That's it. So I say to my friends that are progressive, Joe Biden winning is the worst thing that could happen to you. You understand that, right? Just like if you were the anti-war movement in 2007, the worst thing that could happen to you was voting for Barack Obama because he was going to continue all of those wars and totally silence the anti-war movement, which is exactly what happened. That's what Joe Biden will do for the progressives. They don't care. And you can actually hear it. You can almost hear them coming up with this. Black Lives Matter. What's the problem, Black Lives Matter? Well, it's systemic racism. So in places like Minneapolis, it's systemic, or New York and Atlanta and Chicago and Detroit, it's systemic racism. So you're saying the people that run the systems are racist. Yes, that's the problem. They're either racist or they've created a system that unintentionally is racist. That's the problem. Okay, so we need to change that. Yes. And so you're going to vote for the exact same people that have been in charge of that system for 70 years. Yeah. Well, this time they'll be different. They'll be different this time. They've assured it. Joe Biden said this time will be different. Yeah, he's been there 47 years. But yeah, In order to radically overhaul and change the system, we need to vote for the guy that has been at the top of the system for 47 years. Smart move. Smart move. You guys did it. And now when the next election comes along, it'll be the next Obama, Hillary, Biden, corporatist Dem. That's who it'll be. That's who runs that party now. And so actually, us that are like on the conservative side that are populist and patriot, we're actually closer, ironically, to getting a party that could represent us. It's still a huge uphill battle. But there's enough people saying, yeah, these Republicans suck, screw them, that maybe we'll be able to primary some of them and get them out or start a third party or something. We'll see. That ship sailed for the progressives. You guys are screwed. You're done. You're going to get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That's who you're going to get. And people like that. Oh, they'll throw you a bone. Hey, that person had to be a good person. We put this cabinet position there because they're a black lesbian. So they, right? Isn't that what you want? No, we actually wanted people that would help the people. And I think that there are a lot of progressives that feel that way. But, here, take your token. They're black. That's all that matters, right? Right? Isn't that what you're about? Good luck. That's what you've endorsed. You endorsed the mainstream media. They're going to do it. When I said this, the media, the CIA, the intel agencies, the tech companies, their war against Trump, coming to you, coming to a leftist near you. Told you so. Once you start getting censored from YouTube, once left-wing people try to primary, or people on the left try to primary that are real progressives, and they're called racist, or they're Russians. Remember, that's what they said about Jill Stein. Remember the big knock on Bernie Sanders in the primaries was, Bernie Sanders, the preferred candidate of Russia. Good luck. That's what you're going to get. Maybe they'll even spy on them using Russian disinformation. Maybe that's what they'll do. So, hey, enjoy your endless wars. Enjoy your corporate Democrats that are only selling out to their corporate interests while you get nothing. Enjoy being called racist if you disagree with them. That's what you've embraced. And see, Azam, you can't even be, like, I don't know if you're deaf or what. You're saying Rob's in denial and he'll come around after January 20th. I don't know how many times I've said on this show over and 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 over again, Joe Biden will be sworn in on January 20th. Over and over and over and over again, I've said that. And yet still, you're like, Rob will be in denial. So what am I going to be in denial? So your argument is that Trump will be sworn in. That's your argument? That's what you're saying, right? Because my position is it'll be Biden, and your position is I'm in denial. So explain to me what I'm in denial about. It's insanity. You don't even listen. And this is proof. How many times have I said it on this very show? I'm in denial that America will be great in the next 4 years. So we'll know that January 20th. That's your argument. See how he changed? He's a liar. He could have said, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying Trump would be sworn in. But he can't do that. This is who so many people on the left are. The newspapers are all conservatives. Most of the local newspapers are conservatives, so they would have been for Trump. Here's a list of the local newspapers. 90% are for Biden. Yeah, that's because Trump's a monster. Show me examples of the FBI lying. Okay, here's a bunch of examples. There was no voter fraud. You're in denial, and you'll see January 20th. Actually, I'm saying Biden will swear in. I meant you're in denial about how great America will be. You're just liars. You just lie. That's all. How hard would it be to just say, I was mistaken. I didn't realize that you were saying, my bad. I didn't realize that you were saying that Biden would actually be sworn in. I was wrong about that. How hard is it to say that? My bad. I thought that the newspapers actually were more for Trump. Sorry about that. Wrong about that. Oh, my bad. I didn't know there were examples of the FBI lying like that recently. But they can't say that. They can't do it. Or let me challenge you on these examples you've given of the FBI lying. Can't do that either. So change the subject. That's it. Here's what you could look for 4 years. Some people on the left will wake up. Others will embrace, just like they did with Obama, they'll embrace anything Joe Biden does. So, for example, kids in cages. How much, Joe Biden's already said a lot of the immigration policies initially will remain. So 3 months in, if there's still kids in cages, how many people on the left will you think will be saying, this is an outrage? How many do you think? How many New York Times stories do you think you'll see? How many Rachel Maddow clips or Jake Tapper clips? How many people like Azam will be out protesting that? They didn't say shit when it was Obama. Oh, that's who the policy started under. Didn't care then. That's who built the cages. Didn't care at all. They're not going to care if Joe Biden treats the press like crap. Every time Donald Trump said something about the press, it was an outrage. It was an attack on our freedoms. But when Joe Biden calls them lying dog-faced pony soldiers or challenges them to push-up contest or says that they're one-trick horses or something like that, they'll be like, oh, it's perfectly fine. They're not going to care if Joe Biden starts a bunch of wars. They're not going to care if Joe Biden issues quid pro quos using tax dollars. They don't care. We'll care, bro, but first you have to come around. No, you won't. I know you won't because you haven't. You didn't care that Joe Biden issued a quid pro quo. He already did that. You didn't care about Obama's kids in cages. He already did that. We'll come around. You got to come around, bro. Then we'll care. No, that's not how it works. That doesn't make you an ethical. As always, another trope that you see from so many people, particularly on the left. Right, it is nothing but double standards. That's right. Right, that's the question. Why does it require me coming around for Azam to care about those things? Think about that for a minute. Now, these are people that claim to be your moral superior. You supported Trump and he had kids in cages. That's horrible, man. You're an unethical person. How can anyone support kids in cages? Oh, by the way, I'm admitting that I won't care if my side puts kids in cages unless Rob comes around. Well, if I'm looking, imagine saying that. Imagine saying, like we were talking about the grooming gangs in the UK. So let's say that there's Labour and Conservative Party, right? The Tories and Labour. And let's say I'd be right-wing, I'm a Tory, right? And I'm like, oh my God, look at these, I'm talking in 1995. My God, these Labour politicians in these cities, they know that these children are being gang raped over and over again. Horrible, horrible. And so then Labour loses and now Tories are in there. And someone says, hey, Rob, those gang rapes are still occurring and now it's Tories. Do you have something to say? Well, I'll be concerned about that once some other people come around to my side. But I don't care right now about that. How heinous does that sound? Geez, almost like I never cared about those rapes. I only cared about using it for political points, which is worse than ignoring it in the first place. And that's exactly what so many people on the left do. They didn't give a shit about kids in cages. They cared about using them as tokens to achieve political power. And then as soon as they get that power, they don't give a shit about those kids. Again, I talk about this a lot, but it's like George Orwell, self-proclaimed socialist. He talked about this in The Road to Wigan Pier. He's writing a serial. He was sponsored by socialists out of London. The first half of the book makes kind of a socialist case, talking about the plight of the workers and how horrible it is for these workers. It's terrible. The second half of the book is him saying, but most of these socialists that I'm dealing with in London, they don't give two shits about these workers. They don't care about them at all. They're just exploiting them for political power. That's it. That's who people like Azam are. I'll care about the kids in cages when my side does it, if Rob gives me something first. That's it. And like that. Right, and just give Biden a chance. Says the people that said, not my president, hashtag resistance for 4 years. Give our guy a chance. By the way, I've said this over and over. I think Biden's incredibly corrupt. I think you can see that with the Ukrainian situation, with the China situation. I think he's lost his faculties. I think that he's going to capitulate to China, which is our biggest geopolitical rival. However, I am cheering for Joe Biden to prove me wrong. Even though I think that his getting into office was incredibly unethical. I would like nothing more for this country to thrive, and I'd say, well, shit. Actually, Biden did an awesome job. What I won't be doing is this. Like, follow me here. I had a problem with the budget under Barack Obama, right? I had a big problem with it. Deficit spending, printing money, and all that crap. Huge problem with it. I also have a huge problem with it under Donald Trump. I had a problem with Obama bombing countries when it was unwarranted. I also criticized Donald Trump when he did that with Syria. By the way, there are like the Tea Party. If you were concerned about budgets under Obama, but you weren't concerned under Trump, you're being a hypocrite. It's that simple. You don't get to say, well, when my guy does it, it was well funded or it was a good idea. No. Now, I might not always be right, and you might argue I'm a stupid person. I don't know. But I'm a hypocrite at times too, but I'm trying my best to apply logical consistency. I'm trying. I'm not going to say, geez, one of my big issues, I hated the fact how the FBI spied on Trump using disinformation from Russia. If that occurs to Joe Biden, I'm not going to say, hey, I don't like Biden, so that's fine. I'm going to say, also garbage. Ridiculous. That is not the rule of the intel community. This is corruption of the highest standards. That's what I would say. And I don't like Joe Biden. And I could prove it. I actually have on video many, many times when I'm defending people on the left that I don't like. I think cancel culture is dumb. So I defended people like Joy Reid, Al Franken, Bob Menendez, all of these people that were accused of things. What's his name? Ellis, who was credibly accused by his wife of violence against her. I said, I don't think they should lose their job. They should get their day in court. I defended Ralph Northam for the blackface thing. I defended Justin Trudeau. That is not a reason that they should be taken out of office. Now, if they're legitimately racist, that's one thing. If they did something that was insensitive or a joke that was bad, I don't care. I apply that standard equally. I'm not going to say, well, if people on the left come around to my side, then I'll say that I give the same benefit of the doubt to the Democrats as I do the Republicans. But until then, Ralph Northam should lose his job for the blackface thing. Hypocrite people with no ethics and no integrity do that. That's who so many people on the left are. And yes, there are people on the right that are like that. My side could do whatever they want. The other side's always wrong. That's garbage too. But we're not talking about, the focus of my show isn't so much random people like me that have 40 people watching on a stream, random content providers, or the guy at the bar, stuff like that. We're talking about the movers and shakers in this country. The people at the top of the Republican Democrat Party, corporations, the media, academia, intel community, State Department, DOJ, those type of people. And overwhelmingly, we could see this bias and hypocrisy more on the left. It's just true. Right. Yeah, Tom says, we already know what Biden's about. Rob, start criticizing Biden on day one, but not before. Why? Why wouldn't I criticize the things that he's already saying that he's going to implement? I can't trust him of the policies that he just says that he wants to implement. For example, he refused to call China an adversary. China's by far our biggest geopolitical. The actual FBI that's investigating his son's finances for being engaged in relationships with businesses owned by the Communist Party of China, he says that that's Russian disinformation. Why wouldn't I criticize him for that? I could already see what he's done, that he issued a quid pro quo, using tax dollars to fire a prosecutor that was looking into his son. By the way, the Ukraine, their prosecutors just released a video 2 days ago outlining exactly how corrupt Hunter Biden and Joe Biden was, paying bribes, things like that, to stop the investigation into his son. That's the anti-corruption leadership of the Ukraine. The Democrats told us that. Joe Biden told us that. All the State Department witnesses told us, this new President Zelensky, he's not corrupt. He's fighting corruption. Well, his administration's saying that Joe Biden's corrupt. Did he bribe prosecutors in the previous administration to stop the investigation into his son? That's what that administration's saying. Why shouldn't I judge that now? Now, Joe Biden could get in office and all of a sudden he could say, I'm against this tech censorship. I think that, the media, all the things that I think that we need to investigate the FBI. hold people accountable that were engaged in this coup against Donald Trump. I think we need to rein in spending. I think we need to stop the rhetoric of defunding the police. I think we need to end these disastrous lockdowns. He could get in office and do that. And I'll be happy to say, shit, didn't see that coming. Yeah, great for Joe Biden. Absolutely, great. Fantastic. I'll be the first to say it. But I am criticizing Joe Biden for the policies and the actions he has said he will take once he is president. I don't understand the idea of, and by the way, I'm not saying, I hope he does a terrible job. I'm not saying that. But it's just funny to me, and it's one of those things. It's always the messenger and not the message. It's so easy to be magnanimous now. And Tom, you have to understand this as a Democrat. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people at the top of the Democratic Party, the media, the tech companies, the entertainment industry, academia, corporate America, etc., that said hashtag not my president, that not only refused to accept Donald Trump as their president, but either implicitly ignored or cheered on the coup attempt against Trump because the last administration was unwilling to have a peaceful transfer of power. I'm not going to listen to those assholes tell me, oh, but I have to behave in a better way than they did. Fuck you. I'll listen to it from Tom because Tom didn't act like that. But I'm not going to listen to it from a bunch of people at the top of the Democratic Party, the media, the intel agencies, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to listen to them. The guy, the leader, if we have a governor that's saying, hey, you can't go to your family for Thanksgiving, you got a lockdown, you can't go to your job, sorry, you have to make economic sacrifices, I'm sacrificing my paycheck as well, I'll listen to that guy. I might not agree with him, but I'll say, yeah, that's a person of integrity. I'm not going to listen to people violating their own orders and then telling me I'm a bad person that should be legally punished if I do the exact same thing they're doing. So it's easy to have the right message. Hey, man, we should all give each other a chance. Let's all come together for the good of the country. Let's come together. Oh, but if my side loses, I'll spend 4 years being as divisive as possible. What are you asking for me, Azam? What are you asking for me to provide a source for the quote? Are you talking about the quid pro quo? Is that what you're talking about? China not being an adversary? Watch the debates. U.S. President Donald Trump has called China a foe and an adversary. But Anthony Arend of Georgetown says the team adversary is incorrect. We can't... Oh, maybe does this have Biden? Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden is right in characterizing China as a competitor rather than an adversary. So it's saying right there, Joe Biden called them a competitor, not an adversary. Joe Biden described Russia as an opponent of the U.S. at a CNN town hall, while identifying China as a serious competitor. So yeah, I was right, as I knew it was. No, that's not different what I said. I said he's unwilling to call China an adversary. That literally verbatim. Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden is right in characterizing China as a competitor rather than an adversary. That was literally my criticism. He's unwilling to say that China's our adversary or opponent. Instead, he says, oh, they're a competitor. Yet, he'll call Russia an opponent. In what world is Russia an opponent, but you won't go that far with China? You know, the ones that lied and is largely responsible for COVID being here in this country. The ones that actually had spies connected to leadership in this country. Isn't that weird? You know, the one that was paying Joe Biden's son. Oh, they're not an adversary. They're a competitor. But Russia. And this is what I'm talking about. Does everyone see this? Now, Azam could have just said there, like, oh, I was unaware of that. Instead, he still can't concede the point. Oh, that's not what you said, Rob. It's outrageous. Everyone watching knows that's what I said. All right, I gotta go. Check in on the wife. So, it's been fun here. 3:35 a.m. Whew. I'll be damned if I'm listening to me at 3:35 a.m. So, I didn't even check. Did anybody call back in? Oh, Ankar, man, you're back. I gotta run now. Sorry, I didn't have the headset on, so I couldn't hear you. I get on a roll here, and I just
I didn't want to interrupt.
You mind meme is absolutely right. Russia, China literally is eating our lunch. China is going to overtake. I just read a report. China is the only large country in the world that's economy has actually grown during COVID. And they're getting everything they want. And just to end up here, just to go with Azam's last 2 points. Show me that. So his point was, show me that Biden said that China wasn't an adversary, or that refused to call them an adversary. So I do. He says, isn't that different than what you said, Rob? It wasn't, so I prove it. His next comment is, I concede nothing, Trump. Literally exactly what I'm criticizing by so many people on the left. They make a bullshit claim, you prove them wrong, they just change the subject. That's all he's good at. That's it. And Azam, excuse me for calling you a piece of garbage liar, but that's how I believe based on how you've behaved today. When you say Biden said conflicting things about China, just wait until he becomes president. If he isn't hard on China, then I will agree at that time. No, you won't. No, you won't. You're lying. You're lying. No matter what he does, you'll say, oh, no, he's been hard. You know how I know? Because Trump was harder on Russia than Obama even came close to being. And people like you said, look, Trump's a stooge of Russia. He refuses to do anything, even though he was so hard on them. So I know damn well if Biden's easy on China, you and the mainstream media and the intel communities will go, oh, look how hard Biden's being on China. Look at how hard he is on them. You'll just lie. That's what you'll do. It doesn't matter if I know what you support. I know how you've carried yourself and your disingenuousness from the chat of what I see now. So when I say people like you, I don't even necessarily mean exactly what you support. I mean liars like you and people that once proven wrong changed the subject and things like that. That's what I'm talking. I do know that about you. I've witnessed it and I pointed it out over and over here. That's why I say people like you. I'm saying you won't agree because I've seen how disingenuous you've been here. You'll change the subject. You'll say that he is hard on China. Right, Ankar, Trump did leg drop Russia nonstop, over and over and over again. I guess we will wait and see. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Any donations are really appreciated. I do have to peace out. So if you don't see me for a week or so, I'll try to do a little update when it occurs, but I may have had my baby. So if you don't see me for a while, it's nothing terrible. It's going to be great news. So I can't tell you when I'll stream next. It could be tomorrow. Hopefully not, though. Hopefully I'm in a hospital tomorrow with a baby. So that would be nice. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate all of you. Hopefully once things calm down, we get into the new year, once my baby's here, I'll be able to have a more consistent stream as far as like the time frame of when it's going to occur. So, all right. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. And as always, have a good one.